Imagine two people starting their careers at the same time. They live in the same city, earn similar salaries, and face the same everyday expenses. Fast forward 20 or 30 years, and their lives look completely different. One person is still worried about bills and working nonstop just to keep up. The other has built real financial security and has options in life. The surprising part is that the difference usually isn't luck, inheritance, or some secret investment strategy. The real difference is a set of very ordinary habits repeated over many years. They aren't exciting, they don't look impressive online, and nobody brags about them, but they quietly build wealth. Most people are constantly encouraged to upgrade everything in their lives. New phone, new clothes, newer car, nicer apartment. Advertising and social media push the idea that success means constantly improving your lifestyle. But people who quietly build wealth often ignore that pressure. Instead of chasing every upgrade, they focus on keeping their expenses reasonable while their income grows. One of the biggest examples of this shows up in the way people think about cars. In many places, a vehicle is treated almost like a status symbol. People want the newest model, the newest features, and the feeling of driving something impressive. The problem is that cars lose value quickly. The moment a new car leaves the dealership, it begins losing thousands of dollars in value. For someone focused on long-term financial stability, it makes more sense to buy a reliable vehicle that has already gone through that early drop in value. A dependable used car that runs well can do the exact same job as a brand new one. It still gets you to work, it still takes you on road trips, and it still gets you where you need to go. The difference is that you're not sending a huge monthly payment to a lender. When that extra money is saved or invested instead, it slowly turns into something much more powerful than the excitement of driving a new vehicle. Another quiet habit shows up in the kitchen. Many households spend far more on food than they realize. Restaurant meals, food delivery apps, and random grocery purchases slowly drain money week after week. Some families solve this problem in a very simple way. Instead of constantly trying new recipes and buying random ingredients, they rely on a small group of meals they know well. These meals rotate through the week. Because the ingredients are familiar, grocery shopping becomes easier and cheaper. Nothing gets forgotten in the refrigerator and thrown away later. Cooking also becomes faster because the meals are already practiced. What seems repetitive actually becomes freeing because the daily stress of deciding what to eat disappears. Food waste is another quiet financial leak. Almost everyone has opened their fridge and discovered something that went bad before it could be used. It might be vegetables pushed to the back of the drawer, or leftovers that were forgotten for too long. Small moments like that don't feel expensive, but over a year they add up. A simple habit helps reduce this problem. Before buying more groceries, look at what you already have and build meals around those ingredients first. Using what is already in your kitchen keeps food from being wasted and keeps grocery spending under control. Daily drinks are another example of small spending that grows into something bigger over time. Coffee shops are part of everyday life for many people. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a good cup of coffee, especially when it's part of meeting friends or relaxing somewhere outside the house. The issue appears when it becomes a daily routine. Spending several dollars every workday may not feel like much in the moment, but when that habit continues all year, it turns into a surprisingly large amount of money. Brewing coffee at home costs far less and can still taste great. Many people eventually discover they enjoy the small morning ritual of making their own drink. The coffee shop can still be there for special moments, but the everyday habit becomes much cheaper. Workday lunches create a similar pattern. Buying lunch every day feels normal in many offices, but the cost builds quickly across an entire year. Preparing food at home and bringing it with you can reduce that expense dramatically. It might not feel glamorous to carry your own lunch bag, but those simple decisions leave more money available for savings and investments. Another habit that helps control spending is adding a little inconvenience back into the buying process. Online shopping has made it incredibly easy to spend money without thinking about it. With just a few taps on a phone, purchases arrive at your door. That convenience is great in many ways, but it also removes the pause that used to exist before buying something. When purchases require a bit more effort, people naturally rethink them. Walking through a store, holding an item, and deciding whether it's truly necessary often prevents impulse spending. Clothing is another area where many people overspend without realizing it. Trends change constantly, and the pressure to keep up with them can become expensive. Some people solve this by simplifying their wardrobe. Instead of buying new items frequently, they build a small collection of clothes that fit well and work together. These pieces are worn regularly rather than replaced every season. This approach saves money and also makes daily life simpler, because getting dressed becomes quick and easy. A powerful financial habit has nothing to do with spending at all. It has to do with saving. Many people treat savings as whatever money remains after all their bills and purchases are finished. The problem is that there usually isn't much left. A better approach is to reverse the order. When income arrives, a portion immediately goes into savings or investments before anything else happens. This turns saving into a built-in habit instead of something that requires constant discipline. As income grows over time, another important habit appears. When people get raises or promotions, they often upgrade their entire lifestyle right away. Bigger apartments, more expensive cars, and higher spending quickly absorb the new income. This is sometimes called lifestyle creep. People who avoid this trap often keep their lifestyle steady even after their income increases. The extra money is saved or invested instead. Over time, this creates a widening gap between what they earn and what they spend. And that gap is where wealth begins to grow. Many financially successful people also develop ways to earn money outside their main job. This doesn't always mean building a huge business. Sometimes it starts with something simple that they already enjoy doing. A skill, a hobby, or an interest can slowly turn into extra income. It might be writing, designing, teaching, creating digital products, or sharing knowledge online. Even a small amount of additional income can accelerate financial progress when it's directed towards savings and investments. When you step back and look at all these habits together, a pattern becomes clear. None of them are dramatic. None of them promise instant success. They're simply small choices repeated again and again. Over years, those choices compound in the same way that investments compound. The truth is that building wealth rarely looks exciting. It often looks ordinary and even a little boring. But boring habits practiced consistently can create results that dramatic decisions rarely achieve. While some people chase quick wins and flashy purchases, others quietly build stability and freedom through patience and discipline. Years later, the difference becomes obvious. One path focuses on looking successful today. The other focuses on becoming financially secure in the future. And in the long run, the quiet path often leads to the kind of freedom most people are really searching for. Most people think building wealth requires some kind of dramatic move. They imagine a lucky investment, a viral business idea, or a sudden breakthrough that changes everything overnight. In reality, financial stability usually grows much more quietly than that. It builds slowly through everyday behavior, through decisions that seem small in the moment, but become powerful when they repeat for years. Think about how people usually respond when their income increases. A raise feels exciting, and the natural reaction is to upgrade something in life. Maybe it's moving into a nicer apartment, buying a newer car, or spending more freely because there's finally room in the budget. At first, it feels deserved. After all, working harder should lead to enjoying life more. But something subtle happens when lifestyle upgrades arrive too quickly. Expenses expand to match income almost perfectly. The extra money disappears into new habits before it has time to create security. Someone who once struggled on a smaller paycheck suddenly finds themselves feeling the same pressure even though they earn more than ever before. People who quietly build wealth often handle raises differently. When their income increases, they keep their lifestyle almost the same for a while. The extra money flows into savings, investments, or paying down debt. It might feel strange at first because nothing visibly changes. Friends might upgrade their homes or cars while they continue living the same way they did before. But under the surface, something important is happening. The gap between what they earn and what they spend begins to grow. That gap becomes the foundation for long-term financial freedom. Another habit that often separates financially stable people from everyone else is how they think about time. Many hobbies in modern life revolve around spending money. Entertainment, shopping, dining out, or constant online browsing can quietly drain both time and cash. There's nothing wrong with relaxing activities, but people who build wealth often balance them with hobbies that create something rather than just consume. A person who enjoys photography might start sharing their work online. Someone who loves fitness might help friends design workout plans. A person who enjoys writing might eventually freelance or publish articles. None of these things need to begin as a full business. At first, they're simply creative outlets or skills being developed for fun. Over time, they sometimes turn into additional income streams. Even a small amount of extra income can make a surprising difference. A few $100s each month directed toward investing or paying off debt can accelerate progress far more than most people expect. The key idea isn't working nonstop or burning out with side jobs. It's simply allowing skills and interests to become productive, rather than purely consumptive. There's also a psychological shift that happens. When people focus on building instead of just spending, creating something, improving a skill, or helping others through knowledge tends to feel more rewarding than constant consumption. Instead of asking, what can I buy next? The mindset becomes, what can I build next? That shift often leads to both financial and personal growth. Another quiet advantage appears when people simplify their financial lives. Many households have complicated budgets filled with unpredictable spending. When expenses are inconsistent, stress naturally increases because it's hard to know where the money is going. Simpler routines remove much of that chaos. Cooking familiar meals, keeping a small wardrobe, driving a reliable car, and limiting impulse purchases all create stability. Predictable spending patterns make saving easier because the monthly numbers stop fluctuating wildly. Financial planning becomes clearer when daily life isn't constantly introducing new expenses. Over time, these habits reinforce each other. Spending less on unnecessary upgrades leaves more money for investing. Investing regularly allows money to grow in the background. Additional income from hobbies or skills adds even more fuel to that growth. The result is a quiet cycle where progress gradually accelerates. What makes this approach difficult is that it doesn't look impressive in the short term. Social media tends to highlight visible signs of success. Expensive cars, luxury vacations, designer clothing, and dramatic lifestyle changes create eye-catching images. But those images rarely show the financial reality behind them. Sometimes the people who appear the most successful are carrying enormous debt or living paycheck to paycheck just to maintain that image. Meanwhile, many people who are building real financial security look completely ordinary from the outside. Their cars might be older. Their homes might be modest. Their spending habits might appear conservative. Nothing about their lifestyle screams wealth. Yet their financial foundation grows stronger every year. The interesting part is that the feeling of freedom eventually appears much later. After years of consistent habits, investments begin producing noticeable returns. Savings accounts provide security during emergencies. Debt disappears. Decisions about jobs, locations, and life choices become easier because money is no longer controlling every move. That's the stage where the quiet discipline of earlier years finally reveals its power. The person who once skipped unnecessary purchases or drove a simple car now has options that others don't. They can change careers, take time off, travel more, or simply live without constant financial stress. When people look back at how that freedom was created, it rarely comes down to one dramatic decision. Instead, it's a collection of small habits repeated so many times that they eventually shape an entire life. Making coffee at home instead of buying it every day. Cooking simple meals instead of ordering takeout constantly. Saving automatically instead of waiting to see what's left. Driving reliable vehicles instead of chasing status symbols. Letting income grow faster than lifestyle. None of these actions feel extraordinary. On their own, they seem almost insignificant. But together they create momentum that builds year after year. The truth is that wealth is often the result of patience more than brilliance. It's the outcome of steady behavior rather than sudden success. People who accept that reality stop searching for shortcuts and start focusing on consistency. At first, the progress feels slow. Months pass, and the numbers don't look dramatically different. Then years pass, and the change becomes obvious. Investments grow faster. Savings accounts provide comfort. Opportunities appear because financial pressure has been reduced. Eventually, the habits that once felt restrictive begin to feel empowering. The discipline that once required effort becomes automatic. Instead of feeling like sacrifices, those choices become the reason life feels more secure and flexible. And that is the quiet secret behind most financially successful lives. It's not about chasing excitement or proving success to the world. It's about making ordinary decisions that compound into extraordinary outcomes over time. As time goes on, something interesting begins to happen to people who follow these quiet financial habits. At first, the changes are almost invisible. They still live in similar neighborhoods. They still go to work every day, and their lifestyle might look almost identical to everyone around them. From the outside, nothing seems dramatically different. But slowly, the pressure that many people feel about money begins to fade. Unexpected expenses become less frightening because there is money set aside to handle them. Job stress feels different because losing a paycheck no longer means immediate crisis. Decisions start coming from a place of choice instead of panic. This change doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens gradually as savings grow and investments begin to compound. Many people underestimate how powerful compounding really is because the early years feel slow. The numbers increase little by little, and it's easy to wonder if the effort is worth it. Then something shifts. The growth begins to accelerate. Money that was invested years ago starts producing returns of its own. Those returns begin producing additional returns. What once looked like small monthly contributions slowly turn into something much larger. People who stay consistent during the slow early years eventually reach a stage where their money begins working for them in the background. They're still living their normal lives, but their investments are quietly growing day after day without requiring constant effort. This is the stage where many people finally realize how powerful those simple habits were. The decision to avoid unnecessary debt, the choice to invest automatically, and the discipline to keep spending under control, all combine to create momentum that becomes difficult to stop. Another powerful effect appears in the way financially stable people think about risk. When someone lives paycheck to paycheck, every decision feels dangerous. Changing jobs, starting a business, moving to a different city, or taking time off can feel impossible because the financial safety net simply isn't there. But when savings and investments exist, those same decisions become much easier to consider. A person with financial stability can take calculated risks that others cannot. They can walk away from unhealthy work environments. They can explore new opportunities. They can invest time in learning new skills without worrying about immediate income. In other words, the real benefit of building wealth isn't just the money itself. It's the freedom that money creates. Freedom to choose where you live. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to walk away from situations that don't serve you. And interestingly, that freedom is usually built through choices that feel very ordinary in the beginning. Driving a reliable car instead of chasing the newest model. Cooking simple meals instead of constantly eating out. Avoiding impulse purchases that don't truly add value. Saving automatically even when it feels small. These habits rarely impress anyone in the short term. They might even look boring compared to the lifestyles that get attention online. But over time, they quietly separate people who are financially secure from those who are constantly struggling to keep up. Another important mindset that often develops during this journey is patience. Modern culture encourages instant results. People want rapid transformations, quick success, and dramatic outcomes. But financial growth rarely works that way. True wealth is usually the result of steady progress across decades rather than months. The people who understand this stop looking for shortcuts. Instead, they focus on maintaining the habits that allow compounding to do its work. They understand that consistency matters far more than perfection. Missing a month of investing isn't the end of the world as long as the habit continues afterward. Making a financial mistake isn't fatal as long as the long-term pattern stays strong. Over time, the process becomes easier because the habits turn into routine. Saving money no longer feels like a sacrifice because it has become part of normal life. Avoiding unnecessary spending becomes automatic. Investing becomes something that happens quietly in the background without constant attention. At this point, the focus often shifts away from money itself. Once basic financial security is established, people begin thinking more about how they want to use their time and energy. They start asking bigger questions about purpose, family, creativity, and personal growth. Ironically, the discipline that helped them build wealth is the same discipline that now allows them to enjoy life more fully. Because their finances are stable, They can focus on experiences, relationships, and meaningful work instead of constantly worrying about bills. Years earlier, those same habits may have felt restrictive. Driving a modest car or skipping unnecessary purchases might have seemed like small sacrifices. But in hindsight, those choices were actually investments in future freedom. And that's the part many people miss. When they first hear about boring financial habits, the goal isn't to remove joy from life or live in constant deprivation. The goal is simply to direct money toward things that truly matter instead of letting it disappear into habits that don't add lasting value. When spending aligns with priorities and saving becomes consistent, financial progress becomes almost inevitable. It may not happen overnight, but the direction remains steady. Eventually, the person who followed these quiet habits reaches a point where their financial life feels calm. Emergencies can be handled. Opportunities can be explored. Retirement no longer feels like an impossible dream. Looking back, the journey didn't require genius or perfect timing. It required patience, discipline, and a willingness to choose long-term stability over short-term excitement. And that is why the most effective financial habits often appear unremarkable. They don't create dramatic headlines or viral moments. They simply work year after year, quietly building the kind of wealth that brings real peace of mind. For anyone beginning this journey today, the most important step is simply starting. Choose one habit and apply it consistently. Maybe it's saving automatically each month. Maybe it's reducing unnecessary spending. Maybe it's investing a small portion of every paycheck. Over time, one habit leads to another. Momentum begins to build. The numbers slowly grow. And one day you may look back and realize that the ordinary choices you made years ago quietly transformed your entire financial future as the years pass. Something else begins to change that many people don't expect. The relationship with money becomes quieter. It stops being something that constantly demands attention. Bills get paid without stress. Savings continue growing in the background. Investments quietly move with the market's natural rhythm. Instead of constantly thinking about how to survive the next month, people begin thinking about how they want to shape the next decade. This shift is subtle but powerful. When financial pressure disappears, mental energy becomes available for other parts of life. Creativity improves. Relationships often become stronger. Decisions become clearer because they are no longer driven by urgency or fear. Many people notice that they sleep better. Small problems feel manageable instead of overwhelming. Even during difficult times, the presence of financial stability provides a quiet sense of control. Interestingly, this stage rarely feels dramatic. There is no single day where everything suddenly changes. It simply becomes normal to live without constant financial stress. And that normalcy is something many people spend their entire lives searching for. Another benefit appears in the way time is experienced. People who are constantly struggling financially often feel like time is rushing past them. Every hour is connected to earning money, paying bills, or worrying about the next expense. But when financial habits have been strong for many years, time begins to feel different. There is space to slow down. Some people use that freedom to spend more time with family. Others explore creative interests that were once pushed aside. Some begin mentoring others, sharing the lessons they learned during their own financial journey. What once started as small monthly decisions slowly turns into a life that feels more intentional. And the most surprising part is that the process rarely required extreme sacrifice. It required awareness. It required consistency. And most importantly, it required patience. The early stages of financial discipline can feel quiet and unrewarding. Progress is slow, and the results are difficult to see. But the people who stay consistent eventually discover something important. Small actions repeated over many years have the power to completely reshape a person's future. Saving a little money each month may seem insignificant today. Investing small amounts may feel slow at the beginning. Choosing a modest lifestyle may not attract attention from others. Yet over time, those simple actions build a foundation that becomes incredibly strong. And once that foundation exists, life becomes far more flexible. Unexpected opportunities can be explored without fear. Personal goals can be pursued without constant financial pressure. The future becomes something that can be designed instead of something that must simply be endured. That is the quiet reward of steady financial habits. Not luxury, not status, not the approval of others, but peace of mind. A calm financial life where money becomes a tool, instead of a constant source of worry. For many people, that kind of peace is far more valuable than any expensive purchase. And it all begins the same way it always has, with one simple decision: to think about the future, and to start building it, one small habit at a time.